You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
All right, what's up, Coaches Nation? No, this is not Faisal that you're seeing as a co-host today. So we are super excited to be able to have a conversation today with our guest, Hodges, or Anthony. That's when you get in trouble, right?
It is only my wife calls me Anthony, yeah.
She gets that privilege. Faisal is off doing some important work today, so it's just going to be Ant and I, but this is going to be a really powerful podcast on his experience as a coach and his coach's journey. But before we jump into that, as always, we share wins with our audience, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever you choose to share. What is something that's happened for you over this past week that you would consider a win?
The one thing that I talk a lot with my clients about is getting the right power team behind you to support your business. And when I talk about a power team, I talk about people like a good accountant or tax advisor, a good legal advisor, good HR advisors when you have a start growing team and things like that. And this week it was sad. I said goodbye to my accountant who I've been with for 10 years. And I've transferred to a new accountancy practice and tax advisor. And the work that they've already done this week has just far exceeded what I expected. And previously, my accountant, who I had for 10 years, has done a great job, nothing wrong. But the business has just evolved and grown to a level where it's outgrown their skill set. So it's been something I've been thinking about for a while. It's been something I've been putting off for a while because of the relationship aspect, but I had to finally bite the bullet, and that's a big win for this week. It's an admission that the business is growing up, that the business is growing and scaling. Instead of just one person, you need a team. So
it's like going from childhood to adolescence.
Absolutely. It's a grown-up business now, I'll tell you.
That's awesome. And I will tell you, we are in the process, myself, my husband and I, with all of our real estate investment stuff, that we are in the process of going to transition into a new bookkeeper. Not sure about the CPA yet. I think we jumped the gun on having a really high level team way before we ever needed it. But our bookkeeper is not keeping up with what we need her to. She's been great. We've had her for a lot of years. Haven't quite ripped that Band-Aid off yet because we literally are finishing our taxes. I'm like, I can't switch in the middle of that. But so I feel your pain, and I may be needing a shoulder to cry on here.
It's been a good move. So
good. Glad to hear that. I would say for me, it's really just been, excuse me, along the personal and professional development side, just getting stronger clarity around how I can be a positive impact in the real estate investing community, how to be a coach, how to bring that coaching aspect into what I really want to do in there. And every week I'm just getting more clarity. I'm watching, when I'm at the gym, I watch YouTube videos or YouTube podcasts, and I'm just absorbing all the information and just getting a lot of light bulbs going off. And so last night was another one. I was like, yes, okay, I'm seeing this come together more. So that's always energizing. Clarity is energizing. So that's my win.
At the gym, I stopped listening to music whilst working out and started listening to podcasts probably about a year ago. And the transformation in terms of just being able to think while you're working out, while you're at the gym, and listen and take stuff in rather than just music, it was a big game changer for me as well. So I've been doing that for about a year, and I'm not turning back. So the gym is a good place to do that thinking.
It is. In my previous business, some of the best problem solving moments I ever had during when I owned that business. For about 4 years, I was training for marathons. And so I ran probably about 5 or 6 over those 4 years. And those would be when I'm out hitting the pavement at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning. That would be when I would have those like, oh my gosh, like I know how to problem solve this. That would be, so I'm trying to recreate that at the gym. It's not quite the same, but
good job.
it's still a work in progress. All right, before we jump into Ant's amazing story, we need to recognize, or we want to recognize, the Coaching Mastery community, who is our sponsor for this podcast. The Coaching Mastery community really is a community by coaches for coaches. We exist solely to help support coaches level up in their coaching business, as well as who they are as a coach. Because we can't, even if we are amazing coaches and ask the most beautiful, life-changing questions, it's really not going to work if you don't have the people to do the coaching with. So we really need to have the business mastery along with the coaching mastery so we can be the most effective and have the most influence that we're looking to have in our coaching business. And that's what the Coaching Mastery community is for. We help each other. We're not a single expert that's trying to tell you what to do. We really are working on helping you discover your best path forward as we do ours. So if that's something that you are curious about, reach out to us and we'll have a conversation to see if it's maybe a good fit for you now in your coaching journey. And Ant actually supports us in the Coaching Mastery community, which is how we got to know each other. We reached out to you probably about a year and a half ago, maybe even.
Something like that. Yeah. We had a half-day strategy session together looking at what was happening with the Coaching Mastery community. Yeah, that's where we started. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been working together for a while and it's been a lot of fun. But I would like to focus on, and our listeners would like to hear, what does coaching mean in your life? Because you're a marketer, you've got an agency, but you also do coaching, like private one-on-one coaching. What does that look like? And then we'll kind of go from there.
It's been a journey to get to where I am today. And it kind of the meaning of coaching for me has evolved over the years. And what I believe coaching to be ultimately is a process by helping somebody get to a point of realization change needs to happen. That's the true nature of what I believe coaching is. Yeah. And as I've had experience in business, as I trained as business coach and all of that kind of stuff as well and things, I would sometimes very easily trip into consultancy and advice. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, there's a real distinction that I draw between coaching, training, mentoring. Coaching is about asking the questions to help people get to that point of realization that change needs to happen. The training gives them the skills, the tools, the strategies to be able to make that change a reality. And then the mentoring is about walking the path with them, saying, okay, well, I've been there before. I know what you're going through. I've used the same tools and strategies that you've got because maybe you've done my training, and I'm going to help you get there faster. And I think that distinction is now where I sit firmly within what I'm operating now, but it hasn't always been that way. Yeah. So does that help to give clarity on where I'm at right now?
Yeah. So I think it's fascinating that you do both coaching and consulting. A lot of the coaches that we have interviewed are just solidly in the coaching space. And can definitely be the challenge trying to have a foot in both worlds of when do I tell them what to do? When do I let them discover the process themselves? How do you navigate those two roles? Does one flow into the other? Do you keep them separate? How does that work?
I guess, again, it's been an evolution. I think, plotted history, I was a freelance graphic designer as a teenager, had a few different jobs doing that kind of thing. In 2007, at the age of 26, I decided to start my own agency. Went bust within 2 years, but we were a 7-figure agency. And just before my 28th birthday, we had to put the company into liquidation, lay off all the staff. And it put me about 6 figures into personal debt. At that point, I hid away in a job and at the age of 28, started my personal development journey. I'd never picked up a personal development book. I'd never read any sort of coaching materials or anything like that. And it just started to open up to me. And I thought, do you know what? I'm in a job I'm paying back this debt from my previous business. I can't afford a coach, but what I could do is maybe do some coaching training so that I could maybe self-diagnose and then self-coach. And that's where I started in the coaching world. And I got the bug in 2011. I went back to being self-employed. And at that point, went back to doing marketing delivery. So graphic design, web design, advertising management. And at that point, I was thinking, what's the next level in my training from a coaching perspective? And the coaching world has only got one man to blame for me being in it. In 2012, Brennan Bouchard had a conference in Southern California that I put on a credit card to book into his program, join, and I even dug out the workbook from Experts Academy in 2012.
Nice.
And that was the start really for me, just opening up to not just being a service provider of doing the marketing piece, but wanting to step into this role as a coach. Came back to the UK and spent even more money on a credit card, going further into debt. And I purchased a franchise of something called the Business Wealth Club and became a Business Wealth Club coach and business wealth advisor. And it was a great start for me in terms of how that was really going to move forward. But I needed to up level again. So in 2014, I joined the International Association of Professional Coaches and Mentors and started my life coaching training to dovetail with the business coaching experience. 2 years later, I'm accredited as a master coach. A year later, in 2017, I'm a fellow of the IAPCNM. And even in 2017, at that point where I'd done all of my accreditation, I'd spent thousands on my training, I was still at a point where every time I walked into a business networking meeting or I had a conversation with somebody about coaching, it was a race to the bottom in terms of pricing. It was always, oh, I'll do you a free coaching session, see if we get on. And then, okay, so what's your rate? Oh, it's 97 an hour. Okay, well, we can do 4 sessions a month. It's 400 for the month. And I realized that if I wanted to start earning money, like to earn 5,000 a month, I needed to do 50 coaching sessions. And I was just like, I'm trading my time for money here. I need a new model. It's got to be a better way because I see coaches succeeding. And the biggest shift for me was the shift between selling my coaching based on time to selling it based on value, and that value being the transformation people get out of that coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So niching within the small business market, which was my experience over the years of succeeding, going bust, starting again, having a franchise, all of that kind of thing. That's where I stuck my neck out and just said, I'm going to be a coach for small business and small business owners, self-employed people. And very quickly was attracting people. And I leveraged group coaching really to start with, which enabled me to leverage time because then it's one-to-many rather than one-to-one, and started pricing my one-to-one coaching much higher than just 97 an hour.
Yeah.
You know, the one-to-one coaching started, at 2,000 a month for 4 sessions because it was based on value and transformation, not just on my hours. And today, to flip between the consultant and the coach and the service provider, because my agency delivers digital marketing solutions and services, it became easier when I got team, because I'm not doing it all is the short answer to how I can flip. And with the knowledge, the wisdom, the experience that I've got, obviously over the last 20 odd years of doing all of this. And I think for me, the secret sauce is to have a suite of products that people can slot into, and firmly sticking to this. Okay, well, coaching is coaching, training is training, the mentoring is the one-to-one stuff, but also there's the level of implementation. Because not only as a coach can I help someone get to that point of realization change needs to happen, give them the tools to do it themselves, most people won't, particularly in my niche anyway. The small business owners that I would meet, the struggles and challenges that they had in growing their businesses were predominantly based around marketing and advertising. So then when I started to say, well, I've got a team that can do that for you as well, everything started to come together. And it's a great little 4-piece puzzle that just sits well, and it enables clients to transition from one to the other well. The focus is predominantly on selling the agency side of things in terms of marketing, but there is a focus on selling my coaching. So it starts at both ends. The training and the one-to-one stuff come in after other conversations. And so therefore the group coaching element, the live group events, a membership that I've got where there's a group call every week, and also the agency side brings people in at those angles. And I think if there is a struggle from people switching from one to the other, it's because, like I was wearing all the hats, and it was difficult for me to take one off and put the other on. And being able to engineer the business, have specific products, specific ways that they're delivered, and team to be able to do that now has enabled the business to grow up, as we talked about earlier, and be able to deliver those individual services so that I'm not having to wear all the hats. But what I can still do is be master and commander of the overall brand, enabling my team to deliver.
Yeah. So as you were building out the agency, was the agency and then you kind of added the coaching onto it? Did they kind of develop at the same time, or was it?
It was the coaching first.
Coaching first.
And it was the coaching first. Then it was the training aspect with some online courses and live workshops and things like that. But the coaching really developed first. And it was out of my frustration of not seeing people taking action that I started the agency, because they had all the tools. They had the realization that change needed to happen. They had the tools and strategies to do it, but only handfuls of people were succeeding. So when I opened the door by asking questions such as, would you like me to just do that for you?
You literally said that to me. And I'm like, please, I'm not doing.
And that was the reaction all the time. And so as an agency, we had to do very little of our own marketing to start the agency and start growing, because it came from the coaching angle and simply just asking another great question. Would you like me to do that for you? Would you like us to handle that for you? And that was because people are so busy. And for instance, one of my early clients was a personal trainer, and he's a personal trainer. He's not a marketer. He went into business because he wanted to do personal training. He didn't go into business to learn how to do social media and Facebook ads and YouTube videos and all of this kind of stuff. So I would turn around. He was the first client that I turned around and said, should we just build you a website and do your marketing for you then? Yeah, was the answer. And that's where the agency started. So
that's awesome. And I think the lesson for myself and those listening is as we're progressing in our coaching, and it seems like it is a journey. It's a coaching journey, and we're shifting a little bit what we're doing, and we're seeing new opportunities. How can I be of more value to my clients? Where if we can find an opportunity like you did, where you're like, aha, here's a gap in what my clients are experiencing. Can I fill that gap? And you said, absolutely. I know how to. I mean, you have a background in that. You knew how to do it. You had some perception around that. And so you're like, okay, here we go. That seems like it would have to be pretty scary given what had already happened with the previous business.
It was. And the business went bust in 2009. Getting that job for a few years gave me, I became a business development director of an e-commerce agency. So I was earning good money enough to be able to pay that debt and live. And I think it was the May of 2011. We were on one of the cheapest holidays that we could ever book or vacation that we could ever book. We were in northern France in one of these campsites. And my wife turned around to me 3 days before we were due to come home. And she said, "You're not happy, are you?" And I said, "No." And she said, "What's going on?" And I said, "I just don't want to go back to work. I feel like I need to be master and commander of my own ship again. Yeah, we got this hang up of this debt and I need the salary. I need the income." And it was her saying to me, "Well, if it's right, it'll work out." And our faith as Christians helped us to step into that and to have faith that God would provide in those instances where we needed it. And that step in 2011 was the scariest step in the world. But it all worked out because I was due to speak at a conference in a couple of weeks after I handed my resignation in, based on and representing the company I was working for. And they said, "You need to pull out." And I said, "I'm a keynote. I'm delivering the keynote on social media. So will you send someone else in instead of me so I can communicate that rather than let the event company down?" And the MD said, "Just do it. Just don't mention our company name." So I was then stood on a stage 2 weeks after handing my resignation in. We're having to work a 3-month notice period. And people were coming up to me afterwards going, "When can we work? How can we work with you?" So then I had a roster of clients literally queuing up to work with me once my notice period had ended. And so I literally left one job straight in and had 6 clients straight off the bat, which enabled me to get everything started. But it was a scary step because I was going out into that unknown again. And I would say to people that I'm scared because I have this fear of success, because the first business was so successful so quickly and we took on clients and then it flopped really quickly. It was the March of 2009 when the global recession hit. We lost 10 of our 12 retained clients in a week because marketing budgets got pulled. And it wasn't the fear of success, really. It was the fear of failure. It was fear of failing. And what I had to do was work on reframing what I thought failure was. And failure, instead of being catastrophic failure, which it could have been, I saw failure as a lesson. I started seeing failures and mistakes as gifts to learn from. And it was in that transition period of going back to being self-employed and starting to see failure and mistakes as those gifts to learn from that enabled me to grow, that enabled me to do something different to what had been done before so that I didn't make the same mistakes again. And I remember it was at Experts Academy where he gets you to write down your sort of statements and all this kind of stuff. I wanted to serve people and small business owners to not make the same mistakes that I did. That's what I wrote. And that's what I still live with by today. Ultimately, the experience that I have of being in this world, I see so many people making the same mistakes over and over and over and over again, that it's all about helping them to do what's right and do what's right now to help them with their marketing and their digital strategies and things like that. But it's more about then all of the other aspects of business that come into it with the coaching, where we talk about people and money. And like I said, the power team of having the support mechanisms, customer service, systems, all of these things are mixed in. But fundamentally, it's all about helping small business owners get the right foundations in place so that they can grow, or take an existing fairly successful business and help it scale.
So when you say that you are trying to help other small business owners not make the same mistakes you are, or you did, what I heard you say was that within 1 week's period of time during the last recession, you lost 80 to 85% of your clients within a week. What mistakes do you feel like you made that you can not make again? is it around kind of mitigating against unknown factors, or what are you kind of thinking?
We had one stream of income,
Mm,
and that one stream of income dried up. I think the number one in any business is the most dangerous. If you've got one stream of income, one product, one service, one of you, one customer, if that one disappears, you don't have a business. I think it was even Dan Kennedy that said that the number one is the most dangerous number in business. At that time, all of our clients were retained clients delivering marketing services. That's the only way that we earned money. Today, the diversification of my business, where I have group coaching programs, I have online training products, which effectively give me monthly recurring revenue for very little of my time once they're created.
yeah.
They can take a long time to create sometimes. And the coaching is a couple of hours of my time per week to do that group coaching stuff. The training aspect, they're created. It's about marketing it. And then the agency is about managing the agency side of things. So we have these three streams of income. And then on top of that is the private one-to-one stuff. So the lesson learned was you can't just rely on one way, because even through COVID and through what's happened through all of the pandemic, we saw a boom in what we were delivering for clients at the start of the UK lockdowns, because trainers, consultants who were going in and doing corporate gigs, earning a couple of thousand a day, doing their thing, it just went and disappeared. So then they went, how can we deliver digitally to the same companies? So we helped a number of them develop training products and programs online that we could then push and we could then help to deliver to the same organizations and the same corporates.
Yeah.
But even then, coming out of the lockdowns and coming back to some sense of normality, the original consulting, the original training sessions that they were doing didn't come back very quickly. If some of them didn't come back at all, because the organizations had moved to allowing people to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore people were still remote. Some of them had got rid of offices and downsized, so they didn't have the training facilities anymore. So then there was this hybrid nature of working. And so even with the very nature of what goes on in life, you can't rely on one stream of income or one service. You have to have that spread. And I think a leverage group, one-to-one training that's digitally delivered and digitally, marketed. So it is literally money while you sleep kind of stuff on top of the agency way is how we've grown and developed to enable us to ride the storm.
So as folks are listening to this, I can imagine that some people are like, but I'm just trying to figure out how to coach. I don't even have the mental bandwidth to think about all the rest of the stuff I would add. Kind of what would you say kind of the order of operations would be in thinking about those additional streams?
Straight away, if you're just trying to coach, I think for me, with the lessons I learned early on in my coaching, one-to-one coaching should be the last thing that you try and sell.
Wow, that's interesting.
And I would put people into smaller cohort group programs. And maybe you run a 12-week group program or a 6-week group program within which they get to be part of a group. And the power of group coaching is immense. I didn't really truly believe it and understand it until I started delivering it rather than being part of it. And the value that people got out of seeing other people have their hot seats. And when you as the coach are asking the right questions, they're giving answers. Other people are having light bulb moments go off in their head, and they get so much value of other people's hot seats, potentially having questions asked of them that wouldn't have been asked of them if they were in the hot seat, but still give them value. And that way, it's not a race to the bottom in terms of pricing. You can start to engineer, you can start to create a community. You can start to build testimonials. I remember when I started selling my coaching, I'm like, I need to have social proof. okay, so do I need to go and do a whole ton of free coaching to get testimonials just so I can put them up there? And actually, I'm just going to open up a group program. I think the first group program I had was 6 people for 6 weeks, and it was 100. I think it was, it was £100 each. And, for 6 weeks, it was £600, but it was a test to see if it worked. And it did. So then it started to develop, started to grow. And then eventually the group programs that I was running, I would get 50 to 60 people in at a time for a 6-week program. And the pricing didn't change much. I think it was about 150 to join right at the start. And then from that, people would ask about the one-to-one coaching. A lot of people at that time were talking about marketing funnels. This is like 2014. Marketing funnels is the best thing. Set up a lead magnet, set up a tripwire product, get them into a core offer product. I did all of that and taught people how to do it. But there was a weird thing happening with my stuff. People would see my content, they'd maybe get a lead magnet or register for a webinar, but they'd skip all the bits in between and go straight to the, I want to work with you one-to-one. And I'm like, I need to put the velvet rope up. I need to reduce the number of people that I can. So the only way I did that was to increase my pricing until I started getting a lot of no's. And literally, I had to increase my price a lot before I would get more no's for my one-to-one, because I wanted to reserve my time. So I would say if coaching is a struggle right now, I would reserve one-to-one coaching or the offer of one-to-one coaching to be offered to existing customers. Therefore, to get customers, look at how you can get them into cohort type programs and coach them as groups for a period of time through a framework so they know the journey that they're going on together, and invite them afterwards to say, are you looking for the next step? I've got openings in my one-to-one program. And this is also where you can then start to develop other products and programs like high ticket programs like masterminds.
Yeah.
I haven't run a mastermind now for 18 months, more than that, nearly 2 years. I used to run an annual mastermind. People would join, monthly meetings, face-to-face, a retreat once a year somewhere sunny. COVID hit. We did it all online. The first year of doing it all online, it was such hard work because it's just not the same. So then I decided to can it and said, we're going to start again when we can. And so this January, the mastermind launches again. But it's taken time to just get back to that again. So I've had to get back to learning how to sell that mastermind again and how to get people into it, but it's to existing customers. Yeah. And I think I learned that lesson from Brendan back in 2012 when he unpacked his business model. And at that time, he had something called Center Ring, which was his kind of inner circle mastermind type thing. And it was only offered to people who had upgraded to VIP for Experts Academy. You couldn't even you couldn't even apply to be part of it unless you'd gone through the products and programs that he'd already had and you were already pre-qualified because you'd gone through those. Yeah. And it was that selling that next logical step rather than selling the big jump. Yeah. So group programs, ideal. Sell one-to-one to existing customers. It might be a bit controversial for some, but that's how I've done it.
That's awesome. So in the coaching mastery community, we talk a lot about group coaching, and we have a kind of a loose partnership with Group Magic, which is another organization. We have a common leader in CMC and that. And one of the things that they've talked about, and which is interesting, which is exactly what you're sharing, is a lot of times we have this perception that group coaching is like what you sell if you can't get them to do the individual coaching. It's the second option. You're like, oh, too much money. Well, then group coaching. But rather the idea that group coaching actually is the most valuable, and putting that out there is like, that's the cream of the crop goal, is to get people into group coaching. And so there's this whole mind shift about that I think a lot of us, and I certainly, coming from the mental health field, as a psychologist, we always did group coaching, or we tried to do group coaching. And there was, people have perceptions, well, especially in mental health. I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I've got all these personal problems. I don't want to share them in front of other people. So group coaching or group therapy was very challenging. And we even billed it. Like if we billed $150 for an individual session, we would bill group coaching or group therapy as like a third of that. And so there's a framework around that. So I even went into the coaching space with that same perspective. So it's been interesting as I've been challenged to think about things different. And now you're challenging me again, which is good.
I think when in 2000 and I think it was 2004, 2013, 2014, when I got the franchise for the business wealth clubs, the model was to get a local business community club going, and that would meet twice a month for breakfast, and have a group coaching session in person. And then once a month, there'd be a workshop following that. I had the second most successful club in the UK in the franchise within 6 months.
Wow.
I had over 60 people paying me $197 a month to be part of that community. And it was the power of community that got them and kept them. So I know when people are looking to find answers to problems that they have in their life, fix the challenges that they have, when they're looking for a coach or they're looking for an answer and a coach pops up, what will attract them more, I think, and from my experience, is one, they want access to that expert. Two, they want community. And three, they want the best practices. So they want somebody who is living and walking it, rather than, and I remember when I was looking for coaches, I was talking with business coaches who had run a business like 15 years before and never actually been running their own business, or they've been made redundant from a corporate and they hadn't had the business experience when I was looking for business coaching. So it's that role model that I was looking for, the best practices in the community. And that's, I think, still the same today, and probably more so because of the power of disconnection we've had over the last few years. People want the power of community, access to the mentor, and the best practices. And that trifecta works so well within a group coaching model. And then your expertise and your positioning changes. If your one-to-one coaching is far more expensive for them to get into, it costs more, because you offer so much more value and it's one-to-one rather than one-to-many, and they get dedicated time and dedicated focus. And that's why I position it that way around, rather than trying to sell the one-to-one coaching and a downsell to group, because I think it works better the other way around.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And I think a very valuable insight. I'm curious, what would you say are the top mistakes that you see coaches making, whether they're marketing, whether they're delivering services, that are like shooting themselves in the foot?
I can be guilty of all of these things.
Right? We're not perfect.
Over delivery, number one.
Tell me more about that.
I remember in the early days, I would obviously have coaching sessions billed out at 197 per session. And so we'll be going for 45 minutes. An hour and a half in, I'm still there. And even to a point at which, when they then send a text or an email and spending time answering that and, giving more, because of the perception that I had in my mind, if I give more value, I'm going to get more. But what that did is it conditioned them to believe that each session would then become that long, and that I would go the extra mile and help them further. So I think over delivery, because I came at it from a servant heart perspective rather than a money-making perspective. I wanted to serve people, I wanted to help people. And I believe that's the right way we enter the coaching world, but it can be so dangerous because we want to give more. in that sense. I think the second mistake that I made for many, many years was not valuing me enough and not valuing that transformation I could bring. And it was a long journey to go on for me to reframe my thinking to selling based on the value that I'm bringing rather than my time. And it was a journey, and it is a struggle sometimes to see real transformation, particularly like I said before, when you're coaching and people aren't taking action. So you're not seeing transformation because they're not taking action. So the way I fixed that was by saying, well, do you want us to do it for you? Because then we would see the transformation, then we would see the value. Then in my mind, I'm like, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing here, and I can really help people. So undervaluing and not believing in myself enough was a mistake. And I think that can transition into marketing, that can transition into how you are in the world. Because if you don't believe in yourself enough, when you're then talking, does it come across as you being in a position of full integrity?
Yeah.
Because you've got to be absolutely sold out and believe in your heart of hearts that what you're doing is going to transform lives. If you don't, it will come across. And then the marketing and the messaging and the videos, and now things like the podcasts and the lives you do, it will come across that you're struggling. That I'm listening to someone and I don't really believe that they believe it themselves. And that's what can come across.
Yeah.
And then I think the third mistake is thinking that you can do it all by yourself. I think it was James Wedmore that said, you can go fast on your own, but you can go further together. And the power of building team is immense. Yeah. Team doesn't mean you have to start employing. Team could mean coming alongside people, being part of a community, coaching mastery community. It could mean finding freelance support on an ad hoc basis. I remember when I started, one of the things that my wife said to me was, well, there's plenty of other stay-at-home mums who take their kids to school and then could do some work during the day and do a few hours a day. And so my first employee was someone who literally did drop their kids off at school, came to work in the office for a few hours, and then went to pick them up and had all the school holidays off. And it was great because Laura, who was working for me, did what we needed to do at that point because we weren't huge as a business. And she really helped me to start that cycle of bringing team on. And today, I know I can leave the business for a week, 2 weeks, things will keep running, and team will still deliver. And it's a powerful lesson, but it's scary, even in the light of the first business when we had staff and had to lay them all off. I'm like, if this goes wrong again, I've got all that headache of the relationship aspect and redundancy pay and all of that kind of stuff to pay. But I've just got to believe in my heart of hearts. I'm doing the right thing. I'm going in the right direction. Things are growing. Things are scaling. I can do this. So you don't have to do everything on your own. There's so many coaches that do think from an aspect of, I need to run all the accounts. I need to do the business admin. I need to do the marketing. I need to set my website up. I need to edit those videos. You can find people to do that. Those $5 and $10 jobs, give them to other people so you can focus on what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I love that. And what would you say is, you just offloaded your taxes to a more advanced skill set. What is the next pain point that you need to solve in your business?
Getting out of the day-to-day. Robert Kiyosaki talks about in Cash Flow Quadrant, the transition from self-employed to business owner being the most difficult transition. Yeah. And it's because as a business owner, you should be able to walk away from the business at any time. And the systems, the processes, the team, the products should run smoothly without you being there all the time. I'd probably say I'm about 30% of the way there. of being able to do that. And that next pinch point for me is to be able to take that step, to be able to step away completely from the day to day. And it is about looking at the scaling strategies to be able to do that. And in my first business, I was able to do that so quickly because we grew quickly. We could put the team in place. And I was the one that was just the face of the business. I was out speaking. I was vice president of our local chamber. So I was at all kinds of meetings and TV interviews. And literally, that's how I brought the business in. And then it was delivered. And it's been a journey even to get to this point now. And that's the next pinch point, is to be able to get to that position where I can do that. I think one of the challenges that I know I will have as well will be, how do I multiply myself as the coaching side of the business grows? And I think one of the lessons I've learned from some of the most successful coaches out there is the power of training and raising others. And if your coaching methodologies work and they're structured, why can't you teach somebody who is able to use those models and those frameworks to then coach others? And then it becomes a licensing model where you can release other people to go and make the difference that they're called to make using your methodologies and frameworks. So I think the next transition in the coaching side of things, the first thing that I talked about there was the agency, but the coaching side of things definitely is looking at, how do I bring people in, raise them up to be able to coach using the same methodologies and frameworks that I use. That'll be the next pinch point on that side of the business.
There is a great book that I listened to on my way to Christmas, or this 14 hours halfway across country. And it's the Who, Not How book. And so it sounds like for you, the who are going to be other coaches who can support and take off your plate what you're doing and start duplicating that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think in any kind of coaching or knowledge-based business, that's that transition to quite a seriously successful business. Because once you can get to that point, the scalability of your business goes through the roof. It is the franchise model. It is the licensing model. And it just enables it to take off.
That's awesome. And we're coming to the end of our time together. We do have 4 questions that we ask all of our guests. So I'm going to spring them on you here. What do you say is one of the most influential books in your coaching journey?
I thought you'd ask me. The Go-Giver.
Oh, that's a good book.
And its sequel, The Go-Giver Sells More.
I haven't read the second one.
Okay. The power of adding value to customers' lives. It was transformational for me from that perspective of being able to say, I'm here to serve, and I'm here to serve first. Okay, so serve first is the mentality that I have. Deliver to the highest possible standards that I can. Do it with joy, integrity, and it all comes from starting to read those.
Awesome. I will put those on my recycle list of, the ones I listen to. That maybe next month I will be able to get to that when I'm at the gym.
Cool.
What are some of your hobbies? What do you do for fun to recharge, hang out with your family?
Three main sort of hobbies, really. I play acoustic guitar and lead worship in our church. And so love music. Secondly, wine tasting, big wine tasting buff. When my first business went bust, it was actually a friend who said to me, because Hustle was my middle name when I ran my first business. I'd leave the house at 6 a.m., get home at 8 p.m. every single day, work weekends, didn't have a life. When the business went bust, I really lost my way. I was like, what do I do? There is a life outside of business. She said, you need a hobby. Why don't you come to a wine tasting event with me And I'm like, my business has just gone bust. I'm 167,000 in debt. I do not want to get into alcoholism. But while I was there, I had a business idea and I bought a domain name and I started wine blogging and built a little bit of a name. So wine tasting became a hobby, still is. And we've been to a couple of vineyards post-COVID. Pre-COVID, I was traveling quite a lot around Europe. Obviously, being this side of the pond, it's easier to get into Europe.
Yes.
And the third thing is, I'm just about to restart. I was training for a little while with my best friend, but I'm just about to restart my training as a hot air balloon pilot. We spent a lot of time having some really good fun training a few years back. And again, COVID put a halt to all of that because you couldn't get more than one person in a basket at any one time because of social distancing. And so we've all just started up again. And obviously the weather over here makes it easier to do it in the summer. So yeah, hot air ballooning.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before. Like, I know there's I've never heard anybody say, I aspire to learn how to hot air balloon pilot.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
A lot of people would say, you got the big balloon and the big basket and all these people, but I'm talking about a small basket with 2 or 3 people in maximum, a much smaller balloon. Rather than commercial, it's just doing it for fun. And it is great fun. And it's so relaxing when you're up there as well.
As long as you guys aren't arguing.
Oh, no, we don't. No.
Question about the wine. Do you give your church advice on which wine to select for communion?
No.
No. Okay.
We have little plastic cups of non-alcoholic grape juice.
Okay.
Which are absolutely awful, if I'm perfectly honest. And everyone says the same thing. So, yeah.
We used to go pretty much my entire life. We were going to churches that always had the grape juice. And then just more recently we transitioned and they have wine. And now my kids, who are oldest at 14, we have four kids. My oldest is 14. They all have wine now at church with communion. And they're like, oh, this is horrible, Mom. How could you drink? Stay there. Stay like that. That's exactly. I'm like, girl, good for you. You don't need to enjoy it. It's totally fine. And what do you think separates successful coaches from those that fail, give up, or never really even get started?
Coaches that can learn to sell win more. I think there's this spectrum that we can fall into one end or the other. We're either focused on serving or we're focused on making money. And we've got to find the balance between the two. Because if we're entering the coaching space because we want to serve, if we fall too close to that serving spectrum, we'll end up running a charity. Because when we have no sight of making money, and money isn't necessarily the end goal, or I believe the definition of success for any coach. I believe money is a marker for success. Money is a way to help you to understand that you are making a difference in the world because people are paying you.
Yeah.
So we have to find that balance between the two. So coaches that learn to sell are the ones that make it better in the world, I believe, because, and I use a phrase quite a lot when I'm talking to clients. I have a way in which I sell that I don't believe is actually selling. I sell without selling, I call it. And it's about asking powerful coaching questions in a sales conversation. What's bugging you right now? What's going to happen if you don't get that resolved? Where do you want to be in the next 12 months? Okay, well, I've got a way to help you get there. Are you interested here? And that's how I sell. And that could be a 2-minute conversation. That could be a 30-minute conversation. But it's learning to sell in a way that you're comfortable with, rather than having to pander to manipulative tactics and false scarcity, which unfortunately the marketing world is riddled with.
Yes.
But when you can market with integrity and you have conversation and you can learn to sell through those conversations, that's when you'll make it.
That is really, really powerful information. Guys, those of you listening, go back and listen to what he just said. In fact, I'm going to go back and listen to what you just said after we get done, because those are excellent reminders. Last question is, where do you think the field of coaching is headed?
It's an interesting conversation, interesting question, because a conversation that I had
1 minute to answer. No,
about three weeks ago, was with a guy who was wanting to set up an AI-based coaching platform. And I'm like, where does that fit in the model of what's to come? Because I'm not sure that it would work as well as a human coaching, for instance. And I think I've got real hang-ups over things such as the metaverse and things like this, because it's just like, I would still want to meet people in real life, because in the future, if we're all going to be plugged into computers, we're all just going to be sat on our sofas with headsets on. And ultimately, we're not going to enjoy life as much as we could if we're out there enjoying nature, enjoying each other's company. So I think the future of coaching from a perspective will become a little bit of a hybrid model. I think there will be people who will get value from digital and from AI. The platforms that are being developed scare me a little bit, if I'm honest, because it's computers asking the questions, and where's the empathy? Where's the human intelligence? Where's the emotional intelligence that we need as coaches to be able to ask the right next question rather than a computed or formulaic next question? So I'd like to think that great coaches will still be around, looking at helping people in a human way, face to face, through group methods. But there will be this hybrid that we will probably end up competing against. And who knows, one may win over the other. But I think human nature will still need humans connecting with humans. And we saw that through the pandemic. People with the isolation, they just needed to connect again and touch base.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't really had a conversation about coaching moving into the AI space. Boy, that brings up a lot of thoughts. Like, I think about, like the Facebook algorithms and social media algorithms. So I'm thinking like, well, what would be the algorithms that would be underlying a coaching conversation? Because, on social media, part of the challenge is that it is designed to feed back to you what you already think. And so how, and the value of coaching is to feed back to you what you said, but in a way to expand you to think bigger or differently than where you currently are, because that's what's keeping you stuck. And so, take 1 million questions and just randomize it or something? I don't know.
Who knows? I think the AI that I saw, to a degree, kind of had some of the right key starting questions, but as it developed in the conversation, it didn't. And the other thing for me, when they sound like a robot, even though they say, oh, we've got the most human voice possible, no, it doesn't. It's still robotic. And I still have in the back of my mind, we're going to end up with Skynet here and Terminator all over again.
Right? There's so many movie references here. Yeah. And, going back to the mental health side of things, one of the biggest challenges in our world is just the lack of being known. People get depressed, anxious, all of this because they're isolated and they are not known and seen by somebody. And computers can't fix that. I mean, I think that isolation, that feeling alone and unknown is worsening because computers are becoming more prevalent. And
it's a sense of feeling like you're known, but also wanted and accepted. And it's those things that we need that I'm not sure an AI could do.
I mean, I've never walked into my living room and just given my Alexa a hug and said, thank you for needing me today. I just feel better. Like, doesn't happen.
Nope.
And where can people find you online if they want to engage with you more and ask questions and, jump into maybe some of the offerings that you have if they're thinking like, oh, I think he could solve some of these issues I'm having?
Easiest way to do it is anything Ant Hodges, anthodges.com. That's my website. On there, you can book a free call. You can actually pick whether you're currently a 6-figure business or whether you're aspiring to grow to 7 figures. And I've got some ways in which an initial call with me would be able to help see which direction. Hodges, Ant Hodges over on Instagram. That's where I play more than any other social platform. But then obviously both of those also link through to my agency, hodgesnet.com as well. They're the best ways to reach out to connect.
Why Instagram? Just curious. Why is that your playground?
It's where I've developed the biggest following. I'm a picture person, video person. I don't know. I get sick and tired of the Facebook feed, if I'm honest, seeing all these kind of things that are just really other people and just not really connected. I've even got the Facebook news feed thing turned off. You can get a Chrome plugin to help you do that. So then you only engage in the content you want to at certain times. I feel LinkedIn is a little bit stale, if I'm honest. I'm a creator at heart. I'm a graphic designer originally. I love pictures, I love video, and I love the engagement that you can get through Instagram. That's why I like it more than anything else. Plus, my kids will turn around and say I'm a boomer, and I shouldn't even be on TikTok yet either. So
Our kids are always good for putting us in our place.
absolutely, yeah.
And thank you so much for taking time out to share your journey, your expertise, and the vulnerability you shared of, you grew a big business, crashed and failed, a lot of challenges and struggles, but you really were diligent in figuring out how to overcome those. And it took you a while, but that's your journey. And through that whole entire time, it seems like you've really gotten to a place where you believe that you're better for it. You're in a better place, and it's kind of one of those things where when you earn your first million, it's the hardest, but then every million after that becomes much easier because you've done it before, you can do it again. And
when you earn it and lose it, you learn a lot of lessons as well.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. And we appreciate those who are listening and watching this Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're listening to this. Excuse me. If you got something out of this, please respond back to us. You can send us a message, comment, let us know what you loved about it, what kind of value, what value bombs you got from it, and share this with other coaches that because they are going to get a lot of value from this as well. And all of these sessions have something cool about them that people pick out, and you just never know what that's going to be. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey Podcast.